Hello friends, this video on neural control and coordination part 18 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we will talk about a very interesting topic, that is reflex action. So what is this reflex action? So now we understood the entire story of a brain, that what does a brain do and all. Now we want to understand, but sometimes, so by whatever we have studied so far, we got to know that for anything, for any stimulus related activity, the information is carried out by the sensory organs, and then it reaches the brain, and then from the brain the response comes back, and then the body reacts or responds accordingly. But there are certain actions which need to be responded really fast, and they are called reflex actions. So what are they? So actions or body responses which are instant and they are not controlled by the brain, rather they are controlled by the spinal cord. Now this is instant. This is interesting. Now for instant response, almost instant you mean. So for example, those examples which we discussed initially, when you keep your foot by mistake into the fire, do you have time even to wait for a few seconds? You don't even want to waste a couple of seconds, right? Because your foot might be burning out there. So as soon as you, by mistake, you step into a fire, so your foot immediately comes back. So the response is almost instant there. So in that case, so these type of actions which need immediate response, they are not controlled by the brain, rather they are controlled by the spinal cord, so that the information does not need to reach till the brain. It just goes to the spinal cord and gets the response from the spinal cord, and it can give out the response immediately. However, the brain is always kept informed about all these things. So brain knows that this is happening, but the muscles of your body do not need to wait for the response from the brain. They can get the response from the spinal cord. So that is where spinal cord plays a very important role in the nervous system. So these are some of the examples of reflex action. Getting an electric shock, you jump immediately. So that is instant. Seeing a tiger, you instantly start running. When you put your leg on fire by mistake, you immediately remove it back. So all these are instant actions or reflex actions, and they are controlled by the spinal cord. So that is where we need to understand the structure of spinal cord also. So as I said, brain and spinal cord, these two together form the central nervous system. So let us now have a look at the spinal cord. So spinal cord is nothing but an extension of the medulla oblongata of the hindbrain till the lumbar region. So this is how the spinal cord is. So if you see, it is a tube-like structure which starts from the medulla oblongata. As I said in the previous slide, that the medulla oblongata then extends to form the spinal cord, and it extends till the lumbar region. So it actually ends up till here. So if you see, so it conducts the nerve impulses to and from the brain. So it helps to, like if you see here, there are so many nerves, right? And the nerves actually brings the impulses to the spinal cord, and then the spinal cord carries it to the brain. Similarly, from the brain, it brings back the responses and then send it back to the different nerves. So that way it helps to carry the nerve impulses to the brain and also from the brain. And the most important function, that it controls the reflex actions. Now, if you see, suppose if you put your hand by mistake on the fire, now it is very easy for the nerves to come till the spinal cord and then go back with the response from there, instead of coming till the brain, because that will consume some extra time. So that extra time can be saved and immediately a response can be given. So during such instant responses, the spinal cord is extremely helpful, and that is why we say that it controls the reflex actions. So let us look at the structure of the spinal cord. So the first thing that we'll talk about is the vertebral column, which is a bony structure to ensure protection to the spinal cord. Like in case of the brain, we had the skull outside for its protection. Similarly, in case of spinal cord, we have the vertebral column outside for its protection. The next part is very similar to brain. Here also we have meninges, that is 3 layers of additional protective tissue which cover the spinal cord. And what are those 3 layers? The same 3 layers, that is the dura mater, pia mater and the arachnoid mater. So in a way, these 3 layers of tissues will separate the spinal cord from the external structures. Then the last part, that is the cerebrospinal fluid, which fills space between the meninges. This also ensures protection against shock and injury. Now I am not explaining all these things in detail because they are almost similar to what we had in brain. So this is how the structure of a spinal cord look like. So this portion denotes the cross section of the spinal cord. This is how the cross section looks like. So the cross section we'll take up a little later. So for now, we see that there are various nerves coming out of the spinal cord, and these are all the spinal nerves. You remember I spoke about the peripheral nervous system where I said it is made up of the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. So the nerves arising from the spinal cord and the brain. So these are the spinal nerves. And where are the 3 layers of meninges? The 3 layers are somewhere here. So the outermost layer. So this layer is the outermost layer, and this is known as the dura mater. The next layer, that is the middle layer, is the arachnoid mater. And the innermost layer is the pia mater. So if you see, this is how it is like. Since it is a tube-like structure, so you can understand. So it's like one tube inside another tube. That is how the layer of tissues are arranged. So outside is a bony tube. That bony tube is vertebral column. Inside that you have one layer of tissue, that is the dura mater. Inside that another thin layer of tissue, that is arachnoid mater, and then the innermost layer of tissue, which is pia mater, and inside that you have the actual spinal cord. Right? Okay. So now let us look at the cross section of a spinal cord, because that is also important. That is where we can actually find the gray matter of the spinal cord, like how we had it in brain. So in a similar way, we'll have it in the spinal cord as well. So now if you look at the cross section of the spinal cord, this is how it will look like. So it consists of the following parts. It has a dorsal horn, a ventral horn. So where is the dorsal horn? So these are the dorsal horn. So where are the ventral horns? These are the ventral horns. So ventral means that is towards the bottom, that is towards our front side. So if you look at it, it is actually the cross section of this tube. So this tube-like structure. So if I say the dorsal horn would be towards our back side and the ventral horn will be towards our front side. So that is how they are located, and that is why they are called dorsal horn and ventral horn. Next is the gray matter and the white matter. Where is the gray matter? So this is the gray matter and this is the white matter. And a central canal. So at the center you can actually see a small canal-like structure, that is the central canal. Right? So let us see what is the dorsal horn. What is the purpose of the dorsal horn? So the dorsal horn helps to connect to the sensory nerves. Sensory nerves bring impulses from the sense organs. So the impulses from the sense organs are received in the dorsal horn. So it receives the impulses from the sense organs. For example, your eyes see something. When you see a delicious food, your mouth starts to water. Or let us talk of reflex actions. Let us suppose when you put your leg on fire. So what happens? Your skin is the sensory organ who feels the burn. So the skin will send the impulses to the spinal cord. Through how will it enter the spinal cord? Through the dorsal horn. And ventral horn is connected to the motor nerves. So this nerve which brings information from the sense organ to the dorsal horn, this nerve is known as the sensory nerve. It is also known as the afferent nerve. So afferent word is used for anything that comes in and efferent is used for anything that goes out. Now in a very similar way, the ventral horn is connected to the motor nerves. So these are the motor nerves which send the response to the muscles of the body. So muscles of the body then take action accordingly. So these nerves are known as the motor nerves or the efferent nerves. Motor nerves or efferent nerves. So these nerves carry responses from spinal cord to the organ. So that is how the entire process of reflex action take place. Gray matter is the area where processing of sensory and motor information take place. So now through this dorsal horn, the information comes inside and then the information remains in the gray matter. So as long as it remains in the gray matter, processing of the information take place. Like when your foot comes into the fire, your sense organ, that is the skin, your skin understands that it is hot. Then that information is sent via the sensory neuron to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. Then that information reaches the gray matter in the form of electric impulse. Then the gray matter decides or interprets that information that okay, this has happened and what needs to be done. And finally the response is sent out from the motor through the ventral horn into the motor nerve, and then it reaches the muscles and the appropriate action is taken. Right? So in the gray matter, interneurons use this to cross over the side of the spinal cords. That is how it is utilized. Many types of neurons synapse are also present here because there are too many neurons interaction taking place here. So these are the various parts of the spinal cord. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.